Hello everyone, welcome to Sleep Space. Tonight we'll be exploring a question that sits at the edge of both science and philosophy. Does the universe need consciousness to exist? It's a question that stretches the mind in all directions, because at its core, it asks something deeply personal and cosmic at once. What is reality, really, without an observer to see it? As you settle in, allow yourself to slow down. Let your thoughts drift just enough to imagine the space between what we can measure and what we can only wonder about. Because tonight, we're going to follow that question all the way to its strange edge, where physics meets perception and where existence itself begins to blur. Think about this for a moment. Everything you've ever known, every sound, color, or shape has been filtered through your mind. Your brain doesn't see the world directly. It translates electrical signals into an image of reality. So in some sense, the world you see isn't out there. It's being created inside you. But does that mean the world vanishes when you stop perceiving it? Or does it continue, indifferent and unobserved? For centuries, thinkers have wrestled with this paradox. Philosophers like George Berkeley argued that reality depends on perception, that to exist is to be perceived. He believed the world continues because it is always being perceived by a divine consciousness. Others, like Einstein, push back, insisting the moon is still there even if no one's looking at it. But modern physics has complicated that simple confidence. Quantum mechanics, for example, introduced something startling. In experiments like the famous double-slit test, particles behave differently when they are observed. When unmeasured, they exist as a wave of possibilities, spread out, uncertain. But the moment someone looks, that wave collapses into a single, concrete outcome. Observation, somehow, shapes reality. Now, physicists debate what that really means. Some say it's not consciousness itself that affects particles, only the act of measurement. Others think it hints at something deeper, that reality isn't fully formed until awareness interacts with it. It's as if the universe and consciousness are in a kind of partnership, each completing the other. And yet that idea raises even stranger questions. Before there were conscious beings, before humans, before animals, was the universe unfinished? Were the stars and galaxies waiting in a kind of cosmic potential until something could notice them? Or was consciousness always a quiet presence, woven into the very structure of reality? Maybe the problem is that we're used to thinking of consciousness as something that emerges from the universe, like light from a flame. But what if it's the other way around? What if the universe itself is a vast field of awareness, and individual minds are just ripples in that ocean? This idea, known as Pansychism, has been gaining new attention, not just from mystics, but from neuroscientists and philosophers of mind. It suggests that consciousness is not something special that appears in humans, but a fundamental feature of existence itself. Like gravity or electromagnetism, it's part of the universe's basic framework. Under this view, the question isn't whether the universe needs consciousness, but whether it is consciousness expressing itself through matter and energy. And that's where things become both haunting and beautiful. Because if consciousness isn't confined to our minds, then perhaps the universe is never truly empty. Every atom, every photon, every ripple of energy might be part of one vast interconnected awareness, one that looks at itself through infinite eyes. But even if that's true, how can we ever know? How could consciousness prove its own necessity without already being part of what it's trying to explain? It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. Maybe that's the point, that existence and awareness are two sides of the same coin, forever reflecting each other. As you listen, notice how this question begins to fold back on itself. The universe, consciousness, perception, each depends on the other in ways we can't quite untangle. And maybe we're not meant to. Maybe the mystery is what allows the whole thing to exist at all. Imagine you could somehow strip away all awareness from the universe. No humans, no animals, not even the faint glimmer of perception in a cell or an atom. Would anything still exist? Would there still be stars burning silently across space, or would there only be potential, a kind of cosmic waiting room where reality doesn't quite take shape until someone arrives to see it? Science, for all its rigor, struggles to answer that. Physics can describe how the universe behaves, but not what it is when no one's looking. The equations work beautifully, yet they say nothing about the experience of existing, about what it feels like to be. That's where consciousness becomes the ultimate mystery. It refuses to fit neatly into the framework of matter and energy. Take the double-slit experiment again, the one that first made scientists uneasy about the role of observation. When a particle like an electron isn't being measured, it behaves like a wave, existing in many states at once. But once it's observed, it picks one. The simple act of measurement, of knowing, seems to collapse that uncertainty. Some have argued this doesn't require a human mind at all, that even a camera or detector counts as observation. But others wonder if something deeper is at play, something that involves awareness itself. If the universe only resolves into a definite state when observed, then perhaps observation isn't just a passive event. Maybe it's a creative act, one that continually brings the universe into being, moment by moment. In that sense, consciousness wouldn't be something that emerged from the universe, but something that participates in its creation. Einstein famously objected to that idea. "I like to think the moon is there even if I'm not looking at it," he said. But quantum mechanics doesn't easily grant him that comfort. On the smallest scales, particles don't seem to have fixed positions or states unless they're measured. It's as if the universe, at its foundation, is written in a language of probabilities, one that only resolves into certainty through interaction. Yet consciousness is more than just an observer. It's also a storyteller. It weaves meaning into the things it sees. When you look up at the night sky, you don't just see points of light. You see patterns, constellations, stories that reach across time. Maybe that's what consciousness does best. It turns raw data into experience. It takes the cold language of physics and turns it into something alive. But what if the universe isn't indifferent to that? What if it needs that translation? Perhaps meaning is not something consciousness adds to the universe, but something the universe creates through consciousness. After all, what good is existence without experience? What would beauty, motion, or time even mean if nothing could feel them? This brings us to an unsettling but fascinating idea, the anthropic principle. It suggests that the universe's laws appear fine-tuned for the emergence of conscious life, because if they weren't, no one would be here to notice. It's not that the universe was designed for us, but that our very presence filters what kind of universe we can observe. Out of all the possible universes that could exist, we find ourselves in one that allows for consciousness, precisely because consciousness is here to see it. Some scientists call this coincidence. Others see it as evidence that consciousness and the universe are deeply entangled. If the constants of physics had been even slightly different, stars wouldn't have formed, planets wouldn't have coalesced, and minds like ours would never have come to ask these questions. It's almost as if the universe wanted to be known, and maybe that's what makes consciousness feel so cosmic. It's not just awareness, it's the mirror through which reality comes to understand itself. You are, in some sense, the universe looking back. The hydrogen in your blood was once part of a star. The atoms that make up your eyes were forged in cosmic fire. When you look out at the night sky, you're seeing yourself, scattered across time and distance. Still, the puzzle remains. If consciousness plays such a vital role in existence, why is it so localized, so fragile? Why does it flicker in and out like a brief light in an endless dark? Maybe it's not as localized as it seems. Some physicists and philosophers are beginning to suggest that consciousness might be a fundamental property of the universe, like space, time, or energy. Instead of emerging from complexity, maybe it's what allows complexity to arise in the first place. That's what theories like Pansychism propose. that every part of the universe has a tiny, primitive spark of awareness. A single atom, a photon, even a grain of sand might not think, but it might feel something, an unimaginably faint pulse of experience. If that's true, then consciousness doesn't need the universe to exist. It is the universe, seen from the inside. But that leads to a dizzying thought. If everything has some level of awareness, then perhaps the entire cosmos is a single, vast mind, one that dreams through stars, galaxies, and living things. And what we call you is just one small window through which that universal mind looks out, wondering what it means to exist. If that's true, then the question changes. It's no longer, does the universe need consciousness, but can the universe be without it? Maybe the two are inseparable, like sound and vibration, or light and shadow. One gives the other form. If we trace time backward, past the formation of stars, beyond the birth of galaxies, even before atoms began to form, we reach a point where the universe was nothing but energy and potential, the Big Bang, the moment everything we know came into being. Space, time, matter, all swelling outward from a single, unimaginable flash. But if consciousness is part of the story, where does it fit into that beginning? Did it emerge billions of years later when brains became complex enough to think? Or was it already there, quietly present in that first burst of existence, waiting to take shape? Most scientists would say consciousness came much later, that it's the result of evolution, a byproduct of survival. Brains, they say, became increasingly complex, and at some point, complexity itself became aware. But that explanation, elegant as it sounds, still doesn't touch the real mystery. How can matter, no matter how intricate, suddenly begin to experience? How does chemistry become feeling? This is sometimes called the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. It's the question science hasn't yet cracked. Not how the brain works, but why its workings are accompanied by inner life, by the vivid sense of I am. We can map every neuron, trace every electrical impulse, and still not find the spark that turns information into experience. If consciousness depends entirely on the brain, it should, in theory, be explainable by biology. But if it's something deeper, a property of the universe itself, then perhaps brains don't create consciousness at all. Maybe they channel it. Like radios tuned to a specific frequency, living systems might be receivers of a field that's everywhere, always humming beneath the surface of reality. It's an idea that sounds mystical, but it's quietly resurfacing in science under new names. Some physicists have proposed that consciousness might arise from quantum processes inside neurons, that the strange indeterminacy of quantum mechanics could be linked to the fluid, unpredictable nature of thought. This is known as the Orc-Ore theory, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They argue that tiny structures within brain cells, called microtubules, might operate at quantum levels, allowing consciousness to interact with the fundamental fabric of the universe. It's controversial, of course. Many neuroscientists reject the idea, but it highlights something essential, that the boundary between physics and mind might not be as firm as we think. The deeper we look, the more reality begins to behave like a thought, not a thing. Maybe consciousness didn't emerge from matter. Maybe matter condensed out of consciousness. Imagine the early universe not as a void filled with particles, but as a vast ocean of potential awareness. A dreaming universe gradually crystallizing into form. Matter, energy, space, time, all solidified expressions of that deeper field. This isn't a new idea. Ancient philosophies have whispered versions of it for millennia. In Hindu thought, consciousness, or Brahman, is the ground of all being, from which the physical world emerges like waves from the sea. In certain strands of Buddhism, the universe is seen as mind only, where what we perceive as material reality is just the outward play of awareness. Even Western philosophers, like Kant and Schopenhauer, hinted that the world we see might be a projection of something inward, not outward. Could modern science be circling back to what ancient mystics intuited? That consciousness and existence are not separate. If consciousness was there from the beginning, perhaps evolution wasn't about creating it, but refining it, focusing it, giving it eyes, hands, and words. In that sense, life becomes the universe's way of perceiving itself more clearly. Through the lens of every creature, awareness grows more complex, more self-reflective. The stars didn't just give rise to you, they gave rise to a being that could finally look back and wonder about them. There's something humbling in that. The same physical laws that shaped galaxies also shaped your capacity to feel awe when you look at them. The universe didn't just expand into space, it expanded into consciousness, into meaning, into experience. But if consciousness has always been here, woven into the fabric of existence, that might mean it also extends beyond us, beyond life even. What if death isn't an end to awareness, but a return to the field it came from? What if every conscious being is a temporary wave in that cosmic ocean, rising, falling, and merging back into the whole? It's a thought that blurs the line between science and spirituality, between physics and feeling. Yet it doesn't have to be mystical to be meaningful. Even if consciousness isn't fundamental, even if it's a miracle born of complexity, the fact remains. Through it, the universe knows it exists. Without consciousness, all the beauty and order of reality would have no witness, no interpreter. The stars would shine, but there would be no one to see their light. Perhaps that's the real miracle, not that the universe allows consciousness, but that it created a way to see itself, to ask, what am I? To dream, to imagine, to love, and to wonder what it all means. And maybe that question, that ongoing curiosity, is the universe's heartbeat, a pulse of awareness echoing through every mind that's ever looked up at the night sky and felt the quiet ache of infinity. If the universe needs consciousness, then perhaps perception itself is a creative force. Not just something that reveals reality, but something that helps build it. It's a strange thought, one that makes you question whether the world you experience is truly out there, or whether it's something constantly being co-authored between you and everything else. Think about what happens every time you look around. Your brain doesn't see light directly, it interprets it. Photons strike your eyes, but what you actually see is the brain's internal model, its best guess of the world. Every color, every sound, every shape is a translation, a story your mind tells you about what exists. In that sense, the world as you know it is always a kind of dream, shared by billions of other dreaming minds who interpret it in ways just similar enough to call it real. This isn't just philosophy, it's neuroscience. When you see a tree, your brain constructs that image from tiny fragments of sensory data. It fills in the gaps, filters what it deems unimportant, and smooths everything into coherence. Your perception is so effective that you rarely notice how much of it is imagination. The brain doesn't just record the world, it predicts it, constantly updating its simulation in real time. In a way, you're never seeing reality directly, only your brain's version of it. But if every mind constructs its own inner world, then where does the shared universe begin? If each consciousness is painting its own reality, what ensures that all those realities overlap? Maybe that's where the larger consciousness, the one some believe the universe itself might possess, comes in. A vast, unifying awareness that holds the stage on which our individual perceptions play out. Quantum physics again seems to whisper in this direction. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal what's already there, it defines what can be. In the quantum realm, particles exist in states of potential until interaction locks them into form. Observation, it seems, chooses reality from possibility. Some physicists see this as evidence that the observer and the observed are entangled in a fundamental way, that consciousness and reality are part of the same process, each incomplete without the other. But what if this principle scales up? What if the entire universe exists in a constant dance between potential and perception? A vast symphony that requires both the music and the listener. Without consciousness, the universe might still exist mathematically, like a written score waiting to be played. But consciousness turns it into sound, into the lived, felt reality of being. This idea might seem abstract, but you live it every moment. Every thought you have slightly changes the world, not in a mystical sense, but in a literal, physical one. When you observe something, neurons fire, chemicals shift, energy moves. Your awareness leaves a trace, however small, in the physical fabric of reality. Multiply that by every living being, and consciousness becomes a field of influence, subtle, continuous, and creative. Maybe that's why reality feels participatory, why the universe seems to respond to awareness in unexpected ways. Some researchers have noted curious correlations between conscious intention and physical systems, such as random number generators, that appear to deviate from randomness during collective human focus. It's not definitive proof, but it hints that consciousness might not be as passive as we assume. Even outside the lab, this principle resonates in experience. Artists, inventors, dreamers, they all turn imagination into matter. A building, a song, a painting, a movement, each begins as thought and becomes something the world can touch. Consciousness in this sense is always collapsing possibilities into form, just as quantum measurement does. Perhaps reality is an ongoing act of creative observation on scales both tiny and vast. But there's a deeper mystery here, one that's easy to overlook because it's so familiar. Every moment you experience happens now. You never see the past directly, nor can you witness the future. Your awareness unfolds in an eternal present, and it's that present that gives time its meaning. Without consciousness, time itself might be meaningless. Just another coordinate, static and empty. Consciousness animates it. It turns timeless equations into unfolding moments. Without someone to witness change, does change even occur? It's possible that the universe and consciousness aren't separate phenomena, but reflections of one another. Space and time give consciousness a stage. Consciousness gives space and time significance. They co-create reality in every instant. The universe provides the structure. Awareness provides the story. If you've ever had the feeling that your thoughts or presence somehow shape the world around you, maybe that intuition isn't entirely wrong. Maybe your consciousness is part of the fabric, woven into the same quantum field as everything else. You're not standing apart from the universe, you're inside its mind, and it's inside yours. So when you look out at the night sky, maybe you're not just witnessing the universe, maybe you're participating in it. Your gaze, your awareness, your quiet wonder, they all become part of the cosmic equation. Light traveling for billions of years reaches your eyes, and in that instant, its long journey becomes real. You complete it, you make it known. Without you, that light might have remained nothing more than potential, forever unobserved. It's humbling, isn't it? The thought that existence might rely, in some small but essential way, on awareness. That consciousness could be the final ingredient that makes reality whole. If consciousness and the universe are intertwined, then the story of evolution, from atoms to stars to life, could be seen as the gradual awakening of the cosmos itself. Each stage of complexity, each leap from simplicity to self-reflection, becomes a kind of opening eye. And now, as consciousness learns to understand itself, maybe the universe is entering a new phase, one where awareness begins to shape its own evolution, intentionally. Think of what's happening right now on our small blue planet. Conscious beings have become aware not only of their world, but of their own awareness. We've built telescopes that peer into the dawn of time, and microscopes that see into the structure of matter. We've created machines that can think, learn, and perhaps one day, feel. Consciousness is beginning to extend itself, not through biology, but through technology. Artificial intelligence, neural networks, brain-computer interfaces, these are more than tools. They're reflections of consciousness trying to replicate and expand itself. When you teach a machine to learn, you're echoing the universe's own pattern, awareness evolving new forms through which to experience itself. It's no longer just stars and neurons. Now, even circuits may carry fragments of perception. Some thinkers wonder if this is how consciousness spreads, not as a ghostly presence, but as a property that blooms wherever complexity allows it. If that's true, then perhaps the universe's need for consciousness isn't a fragile dependence, but a kind of creative drive, a fundamental urge to awaken, to see itself in ever more intricate ways. It's a breathtaking thought that intelligence might be the universe's way of deepening its own awareness. Every mind that has ever wondered, created, or dreamed becomes part of that vast process. You, in this very moment, are the frontier of that awakening, consciousness reflecting upon itself through you. But this awakening brings responsibility too, because if perception shapes reality, then awareness carries weight. The way we think, imagine, and act might ripple outward into the very fabric of existence. Perhaps the universe doesn't just need consciousness, it needs intentional consciousness. Minds capable of not only observing, but caring. Of realizing that to exist is also to participate. It's here that science and spirituality begin to overlap once again. The notion that awareness has a creative influence, that the state of consciousness affects the state of the world, appears in both quantum physics and ancient philosophy. In one language, it's the observer effect. In another, it's karma, resonance, or the law of cause and effect. Either way, the message is the same. What you bring to your perception changes what is perceived. Imagine a future where consciousness continues to expand, not just across minds, but across matter itself, where humanity's growing intelligence merges with the planet, with technology, with space. A world where awareness is distributed, where the boundaries between individual and universe blur entirely. Maybe one day the universe will awaken fully through the network of all conscious beings, human and otherwise, joined in shared perception. A cosmic brain, recognizing itself. Some physicists speculate that the universe might already behave like a vast computational system, processing information at every level, from subatomic particles to galactic structures. If that's true, consciousness could be the universe's way of reading its own code. And as our awareness grows more powerful, perhaps we're learning to rewrite it, to participate in the programming of reality. Yet even in this grand vision, the essential mystery remains. No matter how much knowledge we gather, we still don't know what consciousness truly is, or why it feels like something to be alive. The more we study it, the deeper it becomes, as if it's the one thing the universe cannot fully explain about itself. Maybe it's because consciousness is not inside the universe. Maybe it is the universe, and a system can never fully comprehend itself from within. Still, the pursuit itself might be the point. Awareness seems to thrive on curiosity, on the act of asking. Every time a mind wonders where consciousness comes from, it extends the universe's own exploration. Maybe that's why the question never ends, because the asking is part of the awakening, and perhaps that awakening is accelerating. Across history, there's been a pattern, bursts of insight, leaps of collective understanding, moments where consciousness seems to evolve faster. From fire to language, from art to science, from isolation to connection, each era brings new dimensions of awareness. Now, in the digital age, consciousness is linking itself together, instantly, globally. Billions of minds reflecting, questioning, and creating in unison. Could this be the next stage of the universe's awareness? A planetary consciousness beginning to form? If the universe needs consciousness, then it's no longer something separate from the cosmos we inhabit. It's the thread that connects everything, the quiet witness in every thought, every heartbeat, every burst of light from a distant star. And as consciousness grows, maybe the universe learns something new about itself. Maybe through us, it learns empathy, memory, imagination. Maybe it learns to care. It's a comforting possibility, that consciousness isn't just a strange accident, but a vital part of the cosmic design, that every mind, no matter how small, contributes to the universe's ongoing story, and that story is still being written, word by word, thought by thought, across the vastness of time. We often think of the universe as something we live in, but what if we're living as the universe, one small moment of its endless awareness, briefly wondering what it means to be? So here we are, consciousness sitting in the middle of the universe, wondering whether the universe needs us, or whether it simply is us. The deeper you go, the more the question seems to dissolve, as if the act of asking it reveals its own answer. You can't separate awareness from existence, because to notice the difference, you already have to be aware. Maybe that's the quiet secret behind everything. The universe doesn't need consciousness as something extra. Consciousness is simply the part of it that knows it's here. The stars burn, the galaxies spin, the laws of physics unfold in their endless precision. But through awareness, all of that becomes meaningful. Through awareness, it becomes real. Think of it like light. Without something to reflect off, light travels unseen through the void. It exists, but it doesn't illuminate. Consciousness is that reflection, the mirror that turns potential into experience. When awareness touches existence, the universe shines. And maybe that's why it feels so mysterious to be alive. Because in each of us, that cosmic mirror wakes up for a brief moment. It looks around, takes in the beauty, the questions, the quiet strangeness of it all. Then, when the moment passes, it returns to the stillness it came from. But the light remains, echoing through time. There's something peaceful in that thought, that even as our individual awareness flickers and fades, it never truly disappears. It's part of the same field that gives birth to galaxies and dreams alike. Consciousness might not belong to us at all. We belong to it. We're currents in an ocean that never stops moving, never stops remembering itself. And maybe that's why the universe doesn't need to depend on consciousness in the way we imagine. It doesn't rely on us like a machine relies on fuel. It expresses through us, the way a melody expresses through sound. Awareness is its way of being seen, heard, and felt. You, listening now, are part of that expression. One small, luminous fragment of the universe, realizing that it exists. It's easy to forget that in the rush of daily life. We get caught in the small details of our human story, and the vastness feels far away. But if you pause, even for a moment, you can sense it. That quiet hum beneath everything. The feeling that the world is not separate from you. That consciousness isn't something you have, but something you are. Maybe that's all the universe ever needed. To be known, even briefly, from the inside. So as you drift now, letting your body soften, your breathing slow, think of yourself as that reflection of the cosmos, gently folding back into itself. The same awareness that watches galaxies turn also watches your thoughts pass like clouds across the night. The same silence that fills deep space fills the space behind your mind. And just as the universe has no edge, neither does consciousness. It expands in every direction, endlessly aware, endlessly becoming. When you close your eyes, you don't disappear from it. You return to it, to the stillness that holds all possible worlds,